You say that you want to scale your business, but your calendar doesn't reflect your goals. Every scroll, every quick task, every yes that has nothing to do with your vision costs you. In this video, we're going to walk you through the exact same time audit process that we walk our clients through before they begin optimizing their schedule. It's raw, it's honest, and it's really going to work to expose where your time is really going. And also if it's in alignment with your business and life goals, or if it's ultimately burning it down. So let's dive now into the 6-step time audit process so that you can begin to move the needle forward in your business and boost your productivity. So in the Ruthless Time Audit Method, step number 1 is to begin auditing where your time is actually going. So while we go into this step number 1, I don't want you to sugarcoat anything. The goal here is to track your week. So for 7 days, what I encourage you to do is use a 15-minute time tracker and figure out exactly where your time is going. Only in auditing where your time is going now can we begin to restructure your week and create those time blocks so that you can really prioritize what's most important in your business. What I've found is that our clients will think they're being productive, but in reality, they're doing busy work because the hard things or the things that help them pull them out of their comfort zone, they don't want to do. Therefore, they'll do busy work to distract themselves from the thing that's ultimately most important. And so it might feel like you're being productive, but in reality, we're not doing the things that actually matter to our business growth and to our lifestyle goals. And so only in tracking will you be able to really reveal where your time is truly going. I try to do this once a quarter, and the last time that I did this tracker, there are times throughout the day we're not perfect, right? We're human, and so I would look back on my tracker and realize that I had a lot of white space at the end of the day when I went to fill my tracker in, and I actually didn't know where that time went. And so right there, if that's you, and it's just such a telltale sign. And it's like, okay, if I don't even know what I did during that 2-hour block, clearly it wasn't something productive that was moving the needle forward. And so even just that level of awareness, that's what this step is all about, is awareness of where your time is going. And don't sugarcoat it. Don't lie to yourself. Be real so that you can make a plan moving forward and not allow another week, another month, another year, another decade to go by where your time is ultimately being wasted on things that aren't important. It can be tough to remember to track. Right, you need time set aside to track. I think 7 days is super ideal for tracking your time because you get a really well-rounded idea of a week. But even if you just do a day or 3 days, you're getting so much data that's useful for you, even if that's just, I find that I sit behind my computer and there's a 2-hour block where I'm not sure what the fuck I was doing. That alone is awareness of needing to step away more to focus on the big picture and what's most important. So step 2 is asking yourself real questions and being honest with yourself. So Steve, if you were looking back and you were looking at what you just audited in your week, what are some questions that you might ask yourself?
Yeah, I would start from the time I wake up. What am I doing when I wake up? Am I laying in bed on my phone, scrolling through TikTok and Instagram and just feeding my mind with mindless information? Or am I getting up, taking action, starting my morning routine? And I think it really does start from the morning. And honestly, preparation from the prior night, of course. But it's really from the morning to when you go to bed and when you lay your head down on the pillow. And it's like, well, what am I actually doing from, let's say, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. And auditing every minute of every day and seeing where your time is going?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's asking yourself the hard questions, but I feel like in order to even know what questions to ask, I feel it's really important to have clarity on your goal. Because if your goal, for example, is enrolling more clients, then obviously we need to be focusing on sales. So if you're distracting yourself, checking your email, following up with existing clients, building content for social media, you need to know your goal of your life and your business right now to know what questions to ask to make sure you're on the right track. But ultimately, I think in whatever scenario, it's like, what the fuck was I doing? And being clear, what was I actually doing with my time during that allotted time? And did it actually move the needle towards said goal?
Yeah, totally. And I think a really big part of it is saying no to the things that aren't going to move your vision. When you have relationships, family, business, right? I think those come first, and then everything else should come second. Obviously, whatever your priority is, don't just say you're going to do it, but actually doing it. And auditing your day is something everyone should do, right? We should be taught in school.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much wasted time you know, and obviously you want to do something that fulfills you. And I'm not talking about that. But I think having that balance is definitely something that is needed as well.
Yeah. Well, I think too, Steve, so often we sit with people who they want this lifestyle goal.
Yeah.
Like they want to be able to hike with their family on a Tuesday. They want to be able to do things with their life, travel more. But then here we find them working 8 hours a day behind their computer screen and wanting more time back, wanting more freedom. But it's like until you figure out where your time is going in those 8 hours and being real with yourself, only then can you begin to shorten up the amount of time you're spending working by eliminating the busy work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you find the time to do that hour-long pickleball session or go on a 2-hour-long hike. It's only in figuring out the most important. And I feel like an example here is our Wednesdays, like today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk for a minute about how productive our Wednesdays have been because we only give ourselves an hour or two to get the needle moving priority tasks done. And we see our business move forward leaps and bounds in 1 week, every week because of that.
I feel like just like within that 1 hour on a Wednesday, I get more done than I would get on a Tuesday within like 6 or 8 hours even.
Yes.
Just because I'm doing the mundane and I'm just kind of like time is going by and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing the things that I believe I need to be doing, when in reality, I'm actually putting that day and filling it with things that aren't actually moving the needle.
Yeah.
Um,
So to your point, I think like what they need to do is actually shorten the amount of time that you give yourself to work, because in doing that, you're forcing yourself to not do busy work anymore, and you have to just get that done. And if you have watched my video where I help you time block and create your ideal week, I'm going to link it above. If you haven't seen that yet, I talk about the importance of a CEO power hour. And why I love this is in the morning, after you do your morning routine, before you let the day kind of take hold, the idea of the CEO power hour is if I only did this work for the entire day, nothing else, I had no more time to work on my business, I would feel like I got what I needed to done for that day. And so think about how productive your day already feels when you already know you got everything important done for the day.
Yeah.
That's kind of how our Wednesdays are.
Totally.
It's focused, needle moving activities only, and then you shut it off.
Yeah, and I feel like it is higher level thinking too when we're like just talking, we're at a coffee shop and we're talking about like actually like what's going to actually make this happen in the business versus just doing the mundane and just doing the work, sometimes even just like talking about what we're going to do.
Yes.
Versus just being actually with our heads down doing it.
Yeah,
I think both are important, but there's that point, obviously I think there's a time or a day where you need to like just kind of step out of it and actually be like, okay, if I do this, it's almost like a chess game, right? Like where you're like moving a piece and eventually you know you're going to win the game because you're getting to that point it's almost like you're thinking like 5 or 6 steps ahead. And I feel like that would be really important to incorporate in everyone's day.
Totally. I mean, really what you're talking about is not just always working in the business, right? The 9 to 5 type of schedule that many entrepreneurs are still in, where they're working in their own business. I feel like there's this major shift that needs to happen in your mindset of no longer allowing yourself to do everything in your business, but starting to work on it strategically. And what that forces you to do is find key players to integrate into the doing, into the working in the business, which allows you more time and bandwidth to work on it, which is what we're experiencing now, where we're able to pull those more leveraged activities for the business. And that's why we're able to scale up, I believe, quickly now, is because that's where our time is going. Instead of like, I feel like someone could get trapped in their business forever. That's why it's so scary. Like that's why this video is so important.
Totally. Yeah, I think to that point too, I feel like a lot of people grow something that they almost like regret, or they grew a business that they're trapped in and they feel stuck. And they're like, oh my gosh, I totally created this.
Yeah.
How do I get myself out of it? The money might be there, but maybe there's some unfulfillment deeper.
Totally. And only in the auditing, which is that first step, which is figuring out where your time is actually going, will you know what can I automate, what can I delegate, and what can I eliminate? Because there's things that they're doing right now that an AI could probably handle, that a system could take off of your plate. And so I believe in auditing your time, that's the first step to figuring out how can you free up more of it so you can spend more time working on the business versus in it, because you're probably doing a lot of shit right now that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. I mean, even just go in your web browser history and be like, what actually did I do today? Like, what was I doing for 8 hours? 10 hours? Some would be 12 hours.
And if it was a task that took up a lot of time, was that amount of time on the task necessary? Like, I know for you, you spend a lot of time engaging on school. So someone might engage on school for 8 hours, but at what point was it too much and not productive anymore, where your time would have been better allocated filming content like this, right? And so your time might be spending too much in one area that we could dial down to tune up somewhere else that's needed. So it's also shifting around your time blocks too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like every day of the week should be somewhat different, right? Where you do those higher levels on, let's say, a Wednesday, and then Tuesday and Thursday and Friday, whatever, you just actually do it. You actually put your head down, you get it done, and you're super productive. I think you should, have a nice balance of both.
So after you've figured out where your time's actually going, after you've asked yourself the hard questions of where did my time actually go, step 3 is really clarity on what you really want your life and your business to look like. Because then and only then can we really work to build out that dream schedule and make sure that you're doing more of what you love and less of what you don't. And I think that goes back to what you were just talking about making sure that you're dedicating specific weeks to specific days to specific things.
Yeah.
So how would you help someone to figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of look at the end goal. Like, there's never really an end goal, right? You're always climbing that next level to that next step. But it's really like, if I do X, Y, and Z, will that take me to where I want to go in this chapter of my business or life? And that's how I would look at it. Is like, if I do this, then all the other dominoes will fall. And that's something that I personally look at more on the visionary side, is like, well, if I make this connection with this person, then those other dominoes will fall because I went for, like, maybe the bigger dog, right? Or the bigger person in that sense. So I think, like, having that visionary in your business, whether you're the visionary or there's somebody else that can see it that you can't, maybe it's a mentor, coach. I think that's why it's so important to have a coach, is because they'll see something you don't. Right?
Yeah.
You're just so deep into the weeds.
Totally. And I think that's where you, as a visionary, you always work to keep us with the big picture of where we're going. And I feel like there's going to be someone watching this who doesn't have that level of clarity. And if you don't have that clarity, your calendar is always going to be chaos, because ultimately you don't know what you want. And so if you take nothing else away from this video and you only take away the fact that you need to be clear on what lifestyle goals do you have, and then how can you build your business to support and facilitate that. So that means, like, how much time are you working on your schedule? Where is that time going when you are working? And how much money do you need to be making? Because only then can you build out everything else that's actually going to get you there.
Yeah. And I feel like everyone talks about discipline and consistency, and you need that. But it really starts with obviously having that clarity to begin with. This way you're not wasting that time on specific consistent steps. Just because you're consistent with something doesn't mean you're going to get the result that you want. So that's why having that clarity and knowing exactly where you want to be in 5-10 years from now is extremely important. And then also what it is you want your business to look like. Because let's be real, you get to create it, right? You're the creator of it.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to go the way you want, and that's life. But at the end of the day, having that clarity is definitely step 1.
So step number 4 is where we need to identify the big domino. So what's the one thing that if you just did this one thing consistently, it would ultimately move the needle forward? That's what you need to figure out.
Totally. And I think a lot of people, they go automatically for the biggest domino, like the biggest dog or the biggest dog. Like, everyone's most likely seen the movie Avatar, where I think his name was John. He went for, like, the big old, I forgot what they were called, but those birds that, he went for that big one.
Yeah.
So he knew, if I go for that big ass bird up in the sky, because he's a big dog, he's the highest and the meanest and the scariest, that the whole village of avatars would take his lead. So in that, and if you're confused on what the domino is, that for him was that big domino, right? Because he knew if he went for that big one, that the whole village in the avatar world would be like, wow, this guy, he knocked over all those dominoes. He earned that respect.
Yeah.
He earned, everything in that one moment.
Oh, that's such a good example. Because then if you think about someone else who might have been in the village since birth, what are they trying to do? They're spending years trying to gain the respect of everybody, prove their worth, show they're the fastest, the strongest, whatever. That could take years, decades, and still never happen. But he said, okay, what is the one thing that I could do right now that's just going to it's just going to be an automatic yes that I've done it.
And
That's the big domino. I
yeah,
love
and if you
that.
look at that situation too, he was shamed, right? He like turned his back against the whole, like lost trust,
yeah.
like everything that he gained, he lost it and more. But because he went for that big domino, and that was a really big domino. I'm not saying you should go for the biggest domino right away. You should find kind of the smaller dominoes and knock those over, and then go for the big one. But just for example's sake, just looking at what John did,
Yeah.
that's a great example of what domino he needed to knock over to make what he wanted to happen.
Yeah. One thing I see happen all the time with our clients, though, is they'll know what the big domino is, but then they'll put roadblocks in front of themselves. Like, I will do that when I've gotten approval from someone else. I'll do that after I've spent the next 5 years proving to myself that I'm worthy of that, right? Like, they add and prolong them just going for the thing. So I think another question is, like, if you know what that big domino is, then getting real with yourself of why are you not actively going for it? And why do you think you need more than you already have in order to get that thing?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like people are just so stuck in the work, and I love that. I love that you're on the grind, and you're feeling like you're doing all the things. And there's a lot of respect to that, but at the same time, that's long game. Like, that's a really long game that you're taking, and that's fine. If you're fine with that. But entrepreneurship, I mean, you can get burnt out. Financial things happen. Your audience is like, what's going on? Are you getting momentum, or are you losing it? Everyone's watching you, and to look for that big domino, like for me specifically, that's what I'm always looking for. And it's really important to stay focused on not looking for the biggest of the biggest domino.
Yeah.
And it's cool if you get it and rewarding, but I feel like you can lose a lot of momentum, and you can get discouraged because that big domino is almost so unreachable. So I would definitely recommend going for the smaller dominoes, and then getting that big domino will come eventually.
Yeah, because you might not see it at your level of awareness. It's almost reminding me, there's a book called The 5-Hour Work Week. Or I'm sorry, The 4-Hour Work Week, not The 5-Hour Work Week. 4-Hour Work Week, and he says really all he does all day is hangs out in a hammock, goes on hikes, does things to put himself in the highest frequency and the best mindset possible. And he's just waiting for that one thing that will eliminate all other things to just become clear. And so I did not say he's sitting down at his computer, fighting all day long, trying to figure out, like, what is the big domino? What is that thing? If you're not 100% clear in this moment of exactly what that thing is, stop thinking about it. Go clear your mind. Go on a hike. Go do something that makes you creative, and hold the inquiry of what is the big domino? Like, what is the most important thing that I should be focused on right now? And don't do anything else until that answer becomes clear. Then you know what you should go for. And that's it. Like, a personal example, Steve, that I feel like we should share just to make this wildly clear. We realized in our business that the biggest bottleneck that we had was sales, and a lack of ability on our calendars to hold more sales calls. And so, knowing that that was the problem, we said, okay, what would be the big domino then to solve for this so that our business can continue growing? And the answer became very clear that we need to hire someone to come in and specifically do sales. So that became the big domino. And only in overcoming that do all the dominoes fall. We have more space on a schedule to take more calls. We can continue scaling. We can bring on a coach. That became the thing. So now what do we focus on? We focus on filling that spot. And once we put that out there, the right person came at the right time. It was an easy yes. It was just easy. The process was simple.
Yeah, it definitely was.
But it's because we had that clarity that became possible.
Yep. Yeah, and I think if you step out of the doing and do more of the being, you can realize that.
Yes,
So,
but if you're hustling, you can't.
Yeah, and I respect the hustle, love the hustle, but there's got to be a day or a time where you can set a block where you're just being, and you're thinking, not overthinking, but thinking to the point where you have that clarity.
And that's where our Wednesdays have been crucial for us, because that's that time for us to only work on the business, do a little in it, but then work on it the rest of the day doing things like this, and we get so much clarity. So step 5 is to create a focus-driven calendar. Now, if you're interested in me walking you step by step as we actually pull up your calendar and build out your ideal schedule, then this video right here is exactly what we do there. But we're going to talk about the blocks that we believe that you need in order to really do this effectively. So I already said one, that's having that CEO power hour. If you have the ability to do this every morning after your morning routine before the day takes hold of you, that would be really ideal. But at least once per week, having a CEO power hour, focusing on only the needle moving tasks, I feel like is really important. What other days, like maybe you talk about our Wednesday and why you feel everyone should have a day like that, because it's been so transformative for us.
Yeah, our Wednesdays are really just a time to kind of shut the computer off and just kind of like have a conversation with each other on like what needs to happen. So we set our goals too for the following week. But not only that, but we get super clear, right? There's a common thread here with the clarity.
Yeah.
But we get super clear on what it is we need to do to knock over that big domino, right? Is it to make a connection with X? Is it to, put more of our focus and energy towards X versus Y? And I think there's a lot of strategy that we talk about on Wednesdays. So strategy is kind of like our strategy Wednesdays. But then we take action Thursday and Friday on those things that we talk about on Wednesday. So yeah, the Wednesdays are powerful because it is a visionary day in the sense of like, what do we need to do to knock over that specific domino?
Yeah.
And we just go in and we attack it the rest of the days.
Yeah. And then it's wild seeing what happens, because then of course we have the next Wednesday where we talk about what we've done, and we've done it most of the time by even the next week, or we've set the ball in motion where it's happening. So we're integrating immediately. This is nothing we're saying like, hey, what are we going to do in 6 months? It's no, what do we need to solve for right now, and how can we begin to actually solve for that? And also, this isn't just in our business. Like within 1 week before we did a Wednesday and we said, you know what, we've been talking about getting a bunny. Let's go get a bunny. And then by the next Wednesday, we had the bunny. Mm-hmm. Or we did that with chickens. And then the next Wednesday, we had chickens. I mean, it's about so much more than even just their business. It's a life too.
And I really do feel like when you have the clarity, you have the focus. When you have the focus, you have the discipline. We don't always have the discipline, right? Maybe you have the motivation, but eventually you have the discipline because that motivation is only short term.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that that's like the clarity Wednesdays, or whatever day it is of the week for you. I think having it at least one time out of the week is extremely important. Not saying you can't do any physical work or any work where you're on the computer at all, but sometimes just stepping out of it and then looking in from the outside is what you need.
Yeah. I love Wednesday though, because it breaks up your week really nice.
Yeah.
So like what I see is important, especially for those of you watching this who are a coach or a content creator. Wednesdays are great for high level strategy. I love Tuesdays for more content creation. So think filming for social media, think filming for your community, or filming YouTube like this, or podcast. But having a dedicated film day where you know you're going to get into that flow state and just be uninterrupted. So whenever you feel a hit of inspiration that day, you can go out and start filming. So I love the idea of a content creation day. And then I also think it's important to have blocks for your deep work. This is the next thing I would prioritize, because there's nothing worse than starting to get into a type of flow state and then having to be pulled out of that for a call. So I protect my deep work time, and I love having it, and I feel myself getting frustrated on days where I don't have that, because I want to be able to get into flow. That's when I feel like I create the best work. And so I feel like the next thing to integrate on your schedule is having at least 2 to 3 hours, ideally every day, that you can have for just deep focused work on whatever you need to do to incorporate into your business or your clients' businesses. That would be the next thing that I go to create into your business. And from there, then it would be adding in sales call times, sales call blocks. One mistake that I had made was just actually opening up my schedule for client meetings or sales meetings. And the longer I've been doing this, the more I realize if you're shifting from coach mode to sales mode back to back, it's very challenging to actually make sales, because I've found that I bring Coach Jamie into those calls a bit too much, where I'm coaching too much on sales calls and I actually don't sign the client because I coached too much. So if you know, we're not going to get into sales on this call, but that's just kind of a no-no in the sales world. And so I found that when I have to jump back and forth from versions of myself as a coach, I don't I don't do them both as effectively as I could. So I feel like having specific sales call blocks and having specific coaching call blocks on your schedule is very important. One of my clients was allowing his clients to schedule whenever the hell they wanted on his time, and that left him feeling scattered and out of alignment with his schedule. So the one thing that we integrated was, hey, when do you ultimately want to take calls with your clients? We shortened up that block to just, I think it was around 10 hours per week throughout 2 days where he would take client calls, and he moved all of his calls into those blocks, and within 2 weeks had everybody on that schedule. And he's like, I feel so much lighter, so much more aligned with where my business is going, because I held the integrity of where I want my business to go. And my clients just had to find times, and guess what? They all did. He didn't lose any clients, and he feels better about his business.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that.
So step number 6 is accountability and boundaries.
Boundaries. We all know we need them, but not all of us do them. And I feel like that's really missed, not just in the entrepreneurship world, but in life in general. And
Yeah.
we talked about what doesn't serve you in your future vision and your family and all the things that you love and care about. You need to drop. And it's okay to like help a neighbor out with, moving their couch. I know it takes time and energy, and that's cool. As if it's important for you and that relationship's important, that serves you. But if it's a neighbor that you probably don't know and you probably don't really have the time for because you need to do X, Y, and Z, then it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
And having that boundary and that respect for yourself and your time is truly missed, and as a people pleaser, you're very easily one to not set boundaries and say yes to everything. And when you say yes to everything, you're almost saying no to your future self version of yourself and what it is that you truly want, because your time is going towards things that aren't going to move your future vision. And having those boundaries with your family, with your friends, even with your clients is extremely important, and they'll respect you more for it. And if they don't, that's going to happen too in some ways, and that's fine. Then maybe they're just not for you. There's going to be a time when they do realize that at the end of the day, I think when they lay down on the pillow, they'll be like, damn, I kind of respect that he said no. I mean, at first I was pretty angry and upset, but then like there's a time where they just kind of like, they either vent on it or they ponder on it, and they're just like, man, I kind of respect that he said no to me. And having those boundaries is something we all need to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've let go of clients who've overstepped those boundaries, and we've had clients drop clients who feel like their business is out of alignment with what they want because their clients maybe have a nasty attitude, are encroaching on their boundaries, are texting them off hours, expecting and demanding a reply. It's just the reality. If you don't feel in alignment with what you're building, you've got to have stronger boundaries, and that this whole episode is going back to clarity. That's having clarity on what your boundaries really are. Because if you don't know what they are, you can't enforce them. Yeah. And then accountability wise, obviously having a coach, having a mentor, somebody who can help hold you accountable is important, but I feel like they can't do the work for you. I think a coach's job, ultimately, Steve, is helping your client learn how to hold themselves accountable to doing the work. I think that's the key aspect of accountability.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's you holding yourself accountable, and I feel like the true way to do that, and you said it earlier, is discipline, not motivation. And you being the kind of person who just shows up, works on their business, does the needle moving of tasks, and keeps things progressing forward without distraction. I mean, that just has to become this identity that you begin to embody, because that's just who you are. And you hold yourself accountable to the schedule that you set, to the boundaries that you have in place. And so, yes, a coach will help you get started, but at the end of the day, you've got to hold yourself accountable if you want this to work.
Yeah, you can't rely on anyone else to do it for you. You're the one that needs to really step up, and if you don't want it bad enough, honestly, maybe this just isn't for you, and that's okay, right? That's the case in a lot of times, but like I said, clarity, right? Like you need to have that clarity, and if you really want this bad enough, then you'll do it. If you don't, well, then there's that side too.
Yeah. Yep. So that was the 6 steps. in order to really audit back your time. Once again, if you're interested in actually step-by-step creating out your ideal week, time blocking things out, and making sure that's aligned with being the most productive and moving the needle forward in your business, this is the video for you. I'm going to drop it below so that you can get a direct link to that. We also want to extend an invitation to you. If you feel like you are looking for that accountability and looking for support and want to be surrounded in a community full of entrepreneurs who are working to scale up their business while also getting more freedom in their life and their business, implementing schedules just like this, I think our free community is a good place for them to go.
Yep. Come and join us.
Yeah.
Love to see you there.
Join us inside of Magnetic Memberships, and we'll be really honored and excited to walk with you while you build out your ideal week.
And we'll put the link inside there too so you guys can see it.
See you in the next one.